Blaze!
Welcome to another edition of Truth and Rhythm. This is the interview show that gets deep in the pocket with contemporary music's foremost masters of the groove. I am your host, Scott Dr. GX Goldfine. If you enjoy this programming, subscribe to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube, which is where Truth and Rhythm lives, and be an advocate by spreading the word among fellow funk, jazz, and R&B music lovers. Join Truth and Rhythm's membership program through Patreon. You can also submit a direct donation to the cause anytime at funkandstuff.net. At that site, you can also purchase the book Everything's on the One, The First Guide of Funk. Shop for official Truth and Rhythm and Funk and Stuff merchandise, and use the Amazon links for all of your online purchases, which allocates a percentage to this show. For those of you who go the extra step in supporting the show, you have my heartfelt gratitude for allowing us to continue to shine the light on those special artists whose quest is to find truth in rhythm.
I am delighted to welcome to the Truth and Rhythm Mothership singer and composer Jill Jones, best known for her work with Prince and associated artists from the early 1980s through the early 90s. Starting out singing background for Tina Marie in 1982, she began recording and touring with Prince for the 1999 album and shows. Also appearing in Prince's Purple Rain and Graffiti Bridge movies, she released her fantastic self-titled debut in 1987. She was involved with several projects in the 90s, some of which went unreleased. Since the early 2000s, she has put out 2 acoustic-oriented rock albums and another of electronic dance music. Earlier this year, she unveiled the peppy pop dance track Unattainable Love, and later other tracks from her wonderful new album, London Sessions, which dropped yesterday as we were recording this. Jill, thank you for joining the show. How's everything?
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Scott. Everything's good. You know, I couldn't be more surprised by all of this attention I'm kind of receiving for the London Sessions release. But it's great. It's great to kind of feel like we're all hanging out.
No doubt. Yeah, I can't wait. We're going to get deep into that a little bit later on. But congratulations out of the gate for it, because it's really cool, and I can't wait to talk more about it.
Thank you.
Congratulations on that. And so where are you today, Jill?
I'm in Los Angeles. Actually, I'm closer to like Glendale. So it's still part of Los Angeles, but I'm in Glendale, California.
How long have you been out there?
I've been here since like 2012, off and on, and now it's been kind of permanent. And just when I start thinking something's permanent, then I want to leave. So, yeah, no, I've been here because before I had been in New York for ages, and before that I was in Europe. So I came here as a young girl and moved all the way over and just kind of have inched my way back. So funny enough. Where are you?
I'm in Charlotte now, but I'm a Los Angeles native. I came out here in 06.
Yeah.
So I saw tons of Prince shows from first one, 1979 at the Roxy Theater, first West Coast performance. And then, like 30, 40 shows of his out there after that. So,
whoa. I mean, yeah. You've got the t-shirt on. It's fabulous.
I love Glendale, though, the mountains, it makes it pretty cool.
Yeah, that's here. We definitely had a really hot day today. We've been dealing with a lot of the mudslides, but, it looks like it's drying out for a bit. I mean, I can't complain. So
well, good.
Sunshine all the time for the most part. So
I know that's one of the only things I miss, to tell you the truth, is that weather.
And I miss your weather.
Okay. I've never been in the cold of Minnesota, so
It's very cold.
Yeah.
I didn't think it could get much colder, but I had some experience with Michigan and Lake Michigan when I was a young girl, but still, Minnesota was by far the coldest until I went up to like Canada and Toronto, and I was like, okay, all right. I know why my people stopped on their way coming from the slavery when they were free and emancipation. I was like, wow, they just stopped. They said, okay, we're here. Let's not move anymore. So
Yeah, no doubt. You're from Ohio originally, I believe. Then you moved to LA, and
yeah,
your mom managed Tina Marie,
did.
right? So, what
Mhm.
was that like for you growing up? And I understand you sang some backup for Tina at a very young age.
Yeah, I think that, I didn't really know anything about the music business. I know that I had access to all of the albums that were on the charts at that time, like the Jackson Five and I don't know, the Cassidy stuff, all of that. But when my mom, was with Fuller Gordy, one of the Gordy family, and entered into the Motown world, that family was my step family. Then I started to see, oh, this is how it works. And then people who had jobs like managers or, A&R people, all of that. It was something soon I started to learn the jargon of what the music business was quite fast as a kid. And then having Tina, she moved into our house, which is not typical for somebody who's managing an artist. But Tina was really young. She was 18. She didn't really like the money that she had to live on her own. It was easier for her to live with us. We had extra bedrooms in our house. So she became like a surrogate daughter to my mom, but also she was managing her. And because I was in proximity to sing backing parts or to step in when she was writing a song and carry a melody while she was working on another one, that's really kind of how it started.
What was your initial impression of Tina, and how did a friendship evolve?
I was a little jealous of Tina at first because she spent so much time with my mom. Um, I mean, I was about 12 or 13, and I had, for the most part, grown up with my grandparents. So to come here and make the decision to live here, then to have it be sort of turned upside down with another female in the house was a little bit hard for me at first. But then Tina, I think intuitively, she knew that and sort of adopted me like a little sister. And, you know, my mom was kind of a workaholic. So that was going to always be, there was nothing that was going to supersede my mom's work, me nor no one. But so once I realized that, then I was fine. And Tina and I had loads of fun. I went and met her family. I was like everywhere with her, like a kid sister.
Did you know her prior to Rick James
Yeah.
connection? Yeah.
hmm
Did
Because Rick came along after my stepsister, Iris Gordy, was sort of handling his project. And so it sort of just became this family affair. And then they would all meet at our house, like if we were having holiday, barbecues or whatever was going on. That's really where all of the dynamics happened. I think at the Gordy events, there were tournaments, backgammon tournaments, tennis tournaments that everybody participated in. But a lot of that, and outsiders came too, but a lot of that wasn't really about fostering relationships. And a lot of people established a lot of great musical connections that way.
Was it apparent to you pretty quick that Tina had a gifted talent, amazing voice? And
Yeah. I mean, it did. I mean, it was very obvious because everybody talked about it. So it was, and it was very like priority number one to make sure she was going to be successful. And I think that everybody wrangled, got Barry involved, Barry Gordy, the chairman. And because I'm not, I'm sure, the chairman had always seen how people were so talented. That was never an issue about an abundance of talent, but there were other qualities that had to be present in order for him to want or to get involved or green light things. And I think I've learned that now with a lot of people, that it takes a little bit more than just your talent to get the balls and the wheels moving. You have to have this other thing that it really is this, I can't live without this. I will die if I don't do this, if I don't sing, if I'm not famous. Those types of people I can spot them pretty much a mile away now. They're interesting. They are the total opposite of me, but they're very intriguing because I don't think my passions ever went that far with that. They almost always think that God told them they needed to do something, or, oh, it's God sent. And maybe it is and maybe it isn't. But that was from that era. All the artists who sort of made it had that. Nobody stumbled into it, no matter what they say.
Tina Marie, just so you know, is probably, present company excluded, probably my second favorite female vocalist after Shaka Khan. So I've always been a big fan, and I've never heard a more convincing, blue-eyed soul, if you will, singer. Yeah. I mean, it's just so authentic. And also so much of a compact, tiny little woman.
Yeah, she's 5 feet tall, and I think that really, if there was such a thing as reincarnation, I'm sure that Tina came from like before the antebellum South, and she was definitely like singing like slave songs somewhere, because I know it sounds crazy, but she really possessed such an affinity with the Black community that it was almost otherworldly. It really, really, even when I think about it, it's just otherworldly. I've never met anybody in that capacity. And I've often wondered if she were still alive, because things have changed and moved into, appropriations or whatever. But Tina was the perfect poster person for showing us that we're all from like the same, like there isn't, you've got to stop all that appropriate. She was for real. This was somebody sitting in front of you that you'd go, God, who was she in another life? This doesn't make sense. Yeah, she defied all the rules. And I love that about her.
And I've heard conflicting versions of, one that Rick James gave up an opportunity to produce Diana Ross because he was so impressed with Tina. And then another that Diana Ross kind of passed on him. So then he went and did Tina. So I don't know if you know which way that went, but it's kind of interesting.
I don't know. I think Tina would have been waiting anyway. The project, she wasn't like up there, like in that kind of to make the decision. It was probably going to happen. There was nothing to put off. If she decided to do it, Diana would have done it. I can't speak for Miss Ross, but I would almost be inclined to think that she passed, because wasn't she doing the stuff with Niall and had moved into the chic thing, I'm coming out, or was this after that?
I think it's right in that, right around there, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think she had, from meeting her a few times and thinking she by far is one of the most legit stars I have ever met, a person who, phenomenal class act. There will never be another Diana Ross, and I don't care what anybody says, she just has that star quality all over her. Yeah, she knew what she wanted. She had vision. I can't imagine that it was going to fall in line with what was happening with Niall and Bernard and Chic. I think that was her vision. Also, she's such a great mom, and all her life. Yeah, she was all business and a wonderful woman. I just don't see that. I don't know where that story, maybe, I think she probably passed. But I don't know. I can't speak for her. And I think Tina would have been there no matter what. If he passed or if he did it, she would have her project would have been on the back burner for a little longer.
Yeah, that cream would have risen at some point. Now, I feel like when I listen to you that I hear some of the Tina influence. How do you feel about that? And what kind of influence did she have on you from your perspective?
Well, Tina has always mentioned that, I was a really huge Streisand fan, Barbra Streisand. If you caught me singing anything of hers, because I love show tunes. So Funny Girl was like one of my favorite plays. And I think that, like I mentioned, having Tina in the house and everything being about her and her recording career for me to find my own place in the sun, I started to be into musical comedy and musical theater. And I even went to a school that kind of focused a lot on that kind of stuff, even in my high school. But I think I was pulling away, because if you can't beat them, then you have to move away from it. You're not going to outshine someone like that. So I was marking my own. But as it was, Tina was a big show tune freak and loved them as much as me. And we used to sing Gypsy and all those songs together. It was like, I think that was one of her favorite musicals. And I don't know, she turned me on to a lot of musicals. And I think, so those influences might have been there because we did carry the same range. And she just sort of guided me along the way. She also told me that I should stop trying to sound like Barbra Streisand, because I really had gotten so close with her pitch too. She's like, you have to have your own style. And, background singing doesn't really lend you into finding your own style. All background singing does is really helps you to be able to blend with the different tonal qualities of the lead singer that you're singing with. So, but it was great experience.
So circa 19, pre-Prince, what were your aspirations, for your life, for music? College.
I was going to school. That was supposed to happen. But somewhere I got sidetracked along the way. I mean, there was a point where I even didn't want to do music at all and wanted to go into occupational therapy, which was just and move into medical things with handicap or physically challenged people or whatever. I wasn't really sure. There was a side to me that was still the roots of my Ohio upbringing. And then there was the side of okay, I've been given these contacts and I have already established myself in the union and I'm doing backing vocals and people have called me for sessions and blah, blah, blah. Should I just continue? And that's what happened. So when she was doing and so then I was in a dilemma, and I think I missed the round to go to, I went back to school later when I was working with Prince actually in New York, but I met up with him at one point and then kind of got hijacked into that after doing the shows.
What high school did you go to?
Beverly Hills High School.
Okay, Santa Monica High.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we're like neighbors,
Yeah, who knew? Who knew?
And I gotta say, all the LA schools, all of them pretty much, because of, I think, always put on the best school plays. There wasn't a school around in Southern California that didn't have a great production facilities. I mean, and talent, because we're in Hollywood or near that proximity of that. So I think that it was a great time, it was very, very exciting time for us to all be creating, and video was happening, and people were doing stuff on chroma key. I mean, it was really a fun time.
Yeah, no doubt. And you had, of course, disco waning, new wave coming in, MTV
you could go to places
blossoming.
like the Starwood
Yeah.
if you were underage and have fun. You could drink, or the baked potato, which was in Santa Monica, if I'm not mistaken.
Not in Santa Monica.
No?
No.
Yeah, I know there was somewhere that you could go and you didn't have to, but then it's so funny. I remember when I moved to Minneapolis at 19, you could drink. It was crazy. The drinking age wasn't 21. It was 19 or something. I got there. I was like, wow, really? My God. I remember Prince was like, what do you want to drink? It was, mate, drink. What can I drink? It was I don't know. What should I get? I mean, I can actually drink. It was really weird.
So, Tina went on the Dirty Mind tour with Prince, right? But that never came to Los Angeles, unfortunately.
No.
Yeah. So I didn't get to see that one.
I think he came alone.
Yeah, he played at Flippers.
And he went to Flippers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He played at Flippers, and then he did the Coliseum with the Stones. I was at that. And then he did the Santa Monica Civic with Not sure if the time was on that, but I did see the 83 show at Long Beach Arena with Vanity and the Time.
Mm-hmm.
Were you at that?
Yeah, I was on that tour.
That
Yeah,
was a great show.
I was singing behind the curtain.
Amazing show. That's the one where I felt like I could see why maybe Prince felt a little uneasy about the Times act because they were on fire.
They worked very hard at that, and they were a great, solid band. They really knew, they got the assignment. Let's just say they knew what the assignment was, and it was amazing to watch them every night.
So tell us how you made the transition or leap or whatever, though, to actually enter Prince's sphere, if you will.
Well, after we all became friends on the Dirty Mind tour, but when they came for Flippers, I had stayed in touch. Like I literally picked him up and I think I took him somewhere. And then I think that Andre was in town because Andre and I drove him. He went to someone's house. I don't know. I was driving my car and he was out with somebody and we just stayed in touch. So when he was on the Controversy tour, because I'd seen him a couple times after, I called him when he was in Cincinnati. That was the last tour place, I believe it was. I called, I left a message, and he called me back. And I was like, you know what? I think I wanna sing. I want a job. I want to do something. Because he had mentioned, I'm going to build a really huge empire or whatever. I'm like, and before we used to always communicate, and it was he had a definite vision and a dream of what he wanted about all of it. It was kind of hard to take in that someone so young would have this whole, concept of, and will to want total dominion over like the universe. But it was nice in a way, but it looked like all of these things were coming together, and he was always such a funny person. So when I called him, I said, I want to do something. So he goes, I'll call you when I get to town. So he came off of that tour. They were done. And when he came here, he started working on 1999, and that was it. I was in town. He needed a singer. I was there.
Now, were you a fan of his from the get-go, or
No.
how did you?
No, and I think that's, my mother actually said he's going to be a huge star. And I was like, I don't know about that. But what was interesting is that I wasn't kind of on the same path musically with him, because remember, I was just a backing vocalist for Tina. But I did appreciate the Dirty Mind record a lot because I found it to be very melodically intriguing. Like I really liked a lot of those more punky elements that he was using. And then the provocative, I don't know, just his whole nature. But when Controversy and all of these things started coming out, you could see that it was really taking shape. His self-awareness was off the charts. So I don't know, everything was just serendipitous and everything was in sync. I don't know how to explain it. It's like that really did fall into place. And I wanted to sing, and I didn't want to ask my Motown family and everybody for things. I wanted to be able to be like, I did this on my own and I'm doing something really great. So that was a little bit of my impetus.
Did you have aspirations of being a solo act, or you thought I can be just a background, they'll be fine?
No, I wanted to be a solo artist. Yeah, sure.
So you come in for 1999, and you can hear your voice in different ways on that record. I remember first seeing you in the videos and just wondering, who is that? Because kind of seemingly came out of nowhere, and it wasn't like they were blasting Jill Jones. It was, how'd you feel about
JJ.
Yeah. So how'd you feel about that initial exposure, and were you just vibing with it or kind of wanting more? Or?
I thought it was great because I thought that was part of his vehicle of how he was going to introduce me. But I think that somewhere I slipped in between the cracks because I became, this person who was just started to be singing for everybody and singing. And then he couldn't figure out what he wanted to do with me as a solo artist, or at what capacity could he move that into. And then there were issues that started to happen with Purple Rain and the Vanity and all this other business stuff just started to take shape. And I think it just became really incredibly difficult to pinpoint when, how, and what are we going to do. I think he thought I was incredibly a special singer. And I think that was very difficult for him to just give me any song, because a lot of these other ones, he did tailor make them for situations, or he knew what he wanted to do with them. But I think he struggled with what to do with, and I would say he struggled with people who were singers, and what to do with women who could actually really sing, because he couldn't rely on a gimmick. And if he did, then we would have to back off completely from, because it really spoke more to what the public was responding to versus what we all were holding in our arsenal of talent. The public was responding to less vocally talented people in the industry at that point. There were no Janis Joplins. I mean, so Whitney Houston came along and she owned that, and that was it. And then if you wanted to do that, then you'd have to do R&B or whatever. It was really difficult, really difficult. I mean, it's hard. There were some great singers. I just don't think we had the magic 8-ball on how to do that, because we just didn't have that for my project for a very long time. That's all I can say. I shouldn't speak on, there were some great singers in the 80s. I don't know what I'm talking about. But it just didn't, he was a great, but I sang on all of those songs. So like the Manic Mondays, the this, the that, it was really crazy. It was like, as much as I like show tunes, I was literally Debbie Reynolds, I really was. I was singing in the rain. I was behind the curtain on a lot of people's records.
And, as a huge fan, I remember just hearing for the longest time that your project was like delayed, kept thinking, you're going to have a solo record, but then time just kept going. And I kept wondering what was happening with that. And I'm sure it was not easy for you.
It is the old, what is that saying? Why are you giving away the cow or the milk, sleeping when you should be, what is it? The cow and sleeping with the milk, or whatever that thing is, that's what it was. It's like there was a point that needed to happen, even in my own growth and self-respect as a person, like, okay, you can't give the cow away and keep the milk for free. I don't know. I'm trying to remember this thing, but, yeah, I think that happens. And I think that, or have I stayed too long at the fair, as Nancy Wilson said? I mean, there's a couple of scenarios that you could say, people get bored of you. It's like always the bridesmaid and never the bride. I mean, that was my life. That was it. I accepted. That's how it was.
Well, it must have been especially hard when people like Vanity or Apollonia or Sheila E., or these other female artists within that camp, were getting some spotlight.
Oh yeah, because it just made me feel really like shit. Kind of like, wow, I'm still here, and it became a little humiliating. I had to. Yeah, it was a little degrading after a while. Like, who are you? What are you doing? Should you go in the back and maybe start cooking dinner for everybody? I mean, for me, I think the worst part was that I had a run-in with Stevie Nicks at one point. She won't remember at all, but she had a bad night at this party, let's just say. And no, everybody had kind of like, it was a party Prince had, and she showed up at the event. It was when we were on tour, and she was in the bathroom and she was talking to me about stuff, but there was a point where I had to help her up, and I actually looked after her that evening. I looked after her. And in this blur or haze of whatever she was going through, she said, "You're such a great hostess." And I fucking remember like going, wow, I am. I really am. Like I could put on a face and yeah, that was the one time that it really was like, oh my God, that's rough. But it just summed it all up. I was a great hostess.
Now, during this time, let's say from 82 to 85, or let's say, were you cutting a lot of demos and, what was?
Yeah, there were so many that there are times I don't remember. And, there's also, I know that after he passed away, had to sift through things. And, Prince had a lot of mixes of different things, and whose vocal or how he decided to put people on at the end, I don't know. How many people he had singing on something, I don't ultimately know. But the only way I started to realize that happened was during Graffiti Bridge, when he replaced my voice with Elisa Fiorillo's voice in the final dupe of the film, like the final edit. And I had recorded it, and I was like, so you legit took me off of the song. And that really made me start to really think like, wow, you just have I said, what do you have? Like 6 tracks of like other alternates in the backup in the wind, ready to go. So that was at the height of our dysfunction when that happened. But yeah, so I'm sure they've had a hell of a time sifting through things to even know who's this person coming in and who is that? Somebody could walk by and go, "Hi, how you doing?" And you put it on record. They don't know who these people are.
That's like what he did with some of the Times material, right? When the revolution was disbanded, and some of that, Winnie and Lisa had been on some things. And
yeah.
I
mean, and it's really crazy, but hopefully AI will suss it out. I know we've got a thing going on with AI, which has taken my voice at least, and will be able to identify my voice in any of his songs going forward.
That'd be great. There's a good use of AI, people that are afraid of it.
I'm not going to live forever, but I will have, I have a daughter, and I have, and looking at how things are just going, it was like, okay, going to have to think of something here, because there's you just don't know. It's like somebody coming in and ransacking. It's like you do things genuinely, you're there. I feel like the estate should have probably taken everybody who worked with him, like of his bands, and we all should be present to really honestly sit and go through some of this stuff and make heads or tails and connect the dots. I just can't believe that, but the money rules, and that's how they want to do it, because there are other parts of stories that I don't know, but somebody else knows. And once you put all of these, they silo everything, but put it all on the board, you'll start to get what really is freaking going on here.
Yeah, and of course the fans want that too,
Yeah,
so.
because I mean, I'm speaking a lot, about projects or things, because I know I'm not the only one who has this. My story isn't, an anomaly. It's not on its own. There are other people who went through things. So we're only going to benefit the more we go, okay, so this song, this mix, this one, what is that? It's important for just a historical stake.
Mm-hmm. And, the twisted irony, of course, is that, for me, I mean, you're far more of an impressive singer than some of the others that I mentioned that got that exposure, so it's like.
But they had something that he was looking for at the time more than I did. I mean, that's really what that comes down to, because it turned the button, or there were other operating machines behind it, like an agent or a friend, or why a certain song got given to a certain person. There's always a back end deal. You don't know. Some people don't want to admit the back end deals, but he had managers who were out there, looking for different revenue streams. And unfortunately, all of us who had signed on to Paisley Park were starting to get kicked under the rug for these back end deals because Prince had managers who didn't give a shit about the rest of his artists or his vision completely. They said they did, but at the end of the day, their allegiance was to him only. So they'd have no problem throwing any of us under the table. Now, they started doing really well, Morris, Jerome, whatever. No, they go for the biggest head in the bunch. That's how it would be. And throw the rest of everybody under. And they go, oh, Susanna Hoffs and her band, they need a new song, blah, blah, blah. I know people like to make it seem like everybody just, oh yeah, it's just such an organic flow. No, usually deals are made at things like I was mentioning, at tennis tournaments, backgammon tournaments, relationships that get established outside the lines. People are talking.
I find it interesting too, thinking about it as we're talking. Your record comes out in 87, and in the later 80s and early 90s, Prince did give more spotlight to some outstanding singers that didn't have the look, like Bonnie Boyer and Rosie, and even producing Mavis, and that changed on some level.
He did, but why did he make them all so like, Bonnie was maybe, it was a need for him to change his image, and it was great. But I don't know why it didn't work completely. Those women should be household names. So for me, it still fell flat. It's like they should have been household names. And I don't know what that is. That could be the patriarchy. It could be many, many things, but it could be promotion of whatever you marketing. But yeah, phenomenal singers, all of them. Even Tamar, they're all amazing.
Yeah.
That's the conundrum here. Like, what the actual heck went on? They should be household names.
Did you have much that was left on the cutting room floor related to Purple Rain?
Yeah, I did. I think I had 3 scenes that were literally cut out, and that was that. I had a song. So yeah, it's so funny in each film, like Graffiti Bridge and even Purple Rain, I was always the third wheel. It's so weird, like a promise of what this person represented. And if you look at it almost in a spiritual or subliminal way, I didn't really mean all that much. But I think he wanted me to. That's what's so crazy. I think he really genuinely wanted me to mean something in all of this. But each time I ended up on the cutting room floor. And if it becomes that easy to do or cut somebody out that easily, for me, that's saying something bigger than the metaphor can even explain. Like, really, it's a metaphor of just who we were. And yeah, I don't know. I honestly do feel that it was something karmic with us that, one day we'll know. But yeah, I think it was totally karmic that he and I decided that this is how this was supposed to go down.
Who were a couple of other people in the camp that you were close to?
Nobody. Not many people liked me. They weren't very nice to me. Gwen Leeds was amazing. Alan Leeds, because he had to juggle all the women and all the people. God bless him. Bodyguards, I don't know. Sometimes there were a few I liked, some that I didn't trust. I thought they were backbiters, could do me more harm than good, because they had his ear. Some people tolerated me. I think I started to become more aloof and cold with a few of them, especially after Paisley was built, because there were so many people who had started, I grew up in a family of knowing how, like, I could, if I needed to see somebody like the chairman or there's a chain of command that happens. So when I started to see that kind of stuff happening in Paisley Park with people who were very, very like not qualified, like his assistants, Prince had assistants, Well, they weren't like Barry's assistant. No way. I knew what an assistant did. I know what bodyguards, like some of the ones he got, they were great. And I would tell him, like, Hucky was an amazing bodyguard. There were just some people who were on top of it and knew how to not, be manipulative with him. I think I was close to, it was really like going into being in the CIA, I guess, how I would imagine it, and you don't know who's your friend.
And of course, everyone's
Mark on tour. Mark Brown and I and Jerome used to get along great, fabulously. The girls, we got along, but it was like tough because, it was really tough. We were young women and, we had to be professional, even though we'd all had this kind of relationship with Prince. So that was really difficult, very tricky.
Yeah, I'm not sure to what extent you talk about, but was there romance involved for you?
Yeah, with Prince, if you worked with him, there was usually romance. Almost everybody. I'm trying to think who, if they haven't come out and said that it didn't happen, then those are the questions, but for the most part, yeah.
So did you ever get jealous and that kind of thing? I mean,
Of course, I wasn't the only one who got jealous. He could play off of that as well with many different people. I mean, have you ever been in the same room? You're on the same bus with everybody. That was part of a big problem for Vanity as well. It was like she was under the premise that she was in a relationship with him. She has a record deal. And then all of a sudden, I'm showing up to sing backing vocals, and it's her band, it's her bill. She's going to have to pay me. Imagine that. Imagine how you feel that you were dating him. He's suddenly said, we can't go out because you're my artist. And she's like, okay, you've got your other girlfriend in the band, Susan. What the hell is going on here? And I'm going to eat this bill. We're going to pay this bitch? Like, are you kidding? But he did it. My salary on the road came from Vanity 6. It didn't come from him. That takes balls. So if anything, there were some things eroding that were happening to get to Purple Rain. And there's very many reasons why, I guess, she put her walking boots on, aside from the fact that, she'd contributed to some form, and I guess the story of or however the genesis of it, which I'm not privy to that, but I was privy to the part where William Blinn came in and him and Prince and his notebooks. But just like Prince and his 1999 album cover, many people drew on that cover. It was in the house. We all walked in and we all put a drawing. So there were, you got to watch what you do in life. There's consequences. And I think that wore down that situation.
Yeah. So being inside that situation, did it come as a surprise to you when really major things took place, like Revolution being disbanded, or, him coming up with something like the Black Album and shelving it, and some of those kind of big things that were happening right around that time?
No, because by that time, I was living in a penthouse of his in New York City. He was supposedly engaged to Susanna in Minnesota, and she was decorating a house. And, it was a little bit weird because it was like two lives. And it was just like, what the heck is going on here? So when that was happening, I knew. He told me, he called me, talked about it. But, he and I had a very strange relationship, as he did with many of his women. It wasn't all physical, like, oh, real romp when you see this guy. There were a lot of emotional attachments and connections with a lot of different people. He had a few parallel lives running at the same time.
Yeah, it seems like he was able to just compartmentalize things like crazy.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
when the Girls and Boys album or what the Parade album was done, and he had me playing it for Nelson George, in New York, and Nelson came to the apartment and all of that, he's like, I just, all of these things were, he said, oh, it's because I want to introduce you to X, Y, and Z. But if it really hadn't been for a French girl named Sophie Bramley, who started Yo MTV Raps, and she also worked at the Face magazine. And Sophie came over to New York to do this expose on Africa Bambaataa and the whole hip hop scene up in the Bronx. Sophie had been watching, like, she heard my name. She wanted to know who I was. If it hadn't been for Sophie forcing the hand, putting my face on a page in the magazine of the Face, I think I would have had to wait even longer for a record. She was the one who got the ball rolling, because he was wondering, how do you know these people? And then later I met Jean-Baptiste Mondino, and later all of it, the French connection pushed that ball up the hill, basically. They did. They kind of alerted him, like, wait a minute, we know who this person is. That's when some kind of synchronicity happened, and he had no control over it.
There's much more to this great Truth and Rhythm interview. Just continue on to the next part of the episode. Also, be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. And become a member by joining Truth and Rhythm on Patreon, or consider donating at funkinstuff.net. Thank you very much.